we all believe that the Second Amendment's for everyone. And, I do have to say, you said that we as Second Amendment advocates, we do brush our teeth, but, we're all hicks, so we don't have to.
Just the three that we've got, right?
Yeah, just the three that we have. One molar, one canine, and maybe one on the bottom.
Faith, firearms, and freedom. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi, folks. Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 175. Thank you for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week again this week. This is our fifth Sunday special, and that means that we have a special guest with us today. Yehuda Remer is our guest. He's he's the one and only Pew Pew Jew, and he has a new book out that I'm excited to tell you about today, and we'll get to all of that in just a moment. But first, I want to remind you that despite the fact that we are not professional broadcasters, that's a fact I think that's very self-evident if you've listened to the show long enough. But despite all of that, we work really hard to bring you a well-produced, quality show with great information and interesting people like today's guest. We don't do this for a living. We do this thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners, those of you who help us keep this show going by listening to us on Radio Public or by buying from the Armed Lutheran shop or using our affiliate links in the show notes. And, of course, our awesome members of the Reformation Gun Club. It's our membership site. I hope you'll consider joining us as well. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to lots of exclusive content, member discounts, and some cool Armed Lutheran swag. Check us out at armedlutheran.us/gun club and sign up today. Or look for a link in the show notes for this episode, armedlutheran.us/175. All right, as I said, our special guest today is Yehuda Remer. Welcome back. It's been way too long, my friend.
Yeah, it has, but it's really good to be back.
Well, last time you were here, you had just released your first book, Safety On. And before we talk about the new one, give us an update. You've been really busy since Safety On came out. You've got you're on your fourth book now, right?
Yeah, I just released my fourth book on firearms education for children, and I have a fifth one coming out in a couple months.
Very nice. Tell us about the two that preceded the one we're going to talk about today.
Well, the three that preceded the one that we're going to talk about today was Safety On, which that's the one you were talking about, my first book. It is a book on firearm safety, that covers all aspects of firearm safety for children. Not just what to do if you find a gun somewhere it's not supposed to be. Talks about range rules, cleaning your guns, keeping them, respecting them in every sort of way.
Right.
So I had that. I converted that to a coloring book so that children can further the educational process by really internalizing the visuals of the book,
right,
by coloring it themselves.
Yep.
And then this past year, it's already been a year and a half. In 2018, I released the ABCs of Guns, which is literally an ABC book. I did that, and it's been a lot of fun. The journey has been great. A lot of support along the way, meeting really the most amazing people, and it's been pretty cool.
It's been really fun to watch you your career grow and the books grow in popularity. In fact, I recommended both Safety On and the coloring book and your newest book over the weekend at a match to a friend who was talking about teaching his kids. And so let's talk about this newest book. It's called 27 Words, A Children's Guide to the Second Amendment. Where did you get the idea to do this book?
So I'll answer that with a question to you, Lord. I will ask you, if I were to ask you, why do you teach your kids how to use a firearm, how to shoot?
Mm-hmm.
What would your answer? What would your answer be?
Well, I would talk about their fundamental right to self-defense and defense of freedom.
Exactly. So most people who I've actually asked that question to, a majority of people have actually said, oh, we teach them because we're not always going to be there, and they need to know how to defend themselves.
Right.
And I'm like, that's 100% true. I wholeheartedly agree. But that's not the reason why we teach our kids about guns.
Right.
It all stems from the Second Amendment. It's the exact reason why we as Americans learn about firearms, choose to carry a firearm, choose to train a firearm, is because of the Second Amendment. And with all of our, with the education that our kids are now getting in school, with all of that, I guess, call it revisionist history, a book like 27 Words, which is just basically an introduction to the Second Amendment for kids, the way the founding fathers, or the way that most Americans nowadays believe the Second Amendment to be, being the individual right to self-defense, not the militia clause. I felt that there was a book that was desperately needed. And
you mean they? Wait a minute. I was really puzzled as to why you would make this book in the first place, because don't they teach this stuff in school?
Well, luckily my kids are not in a public school, so last I heard that they do teach the Second Amendment in the school, but they cut out a lot of the words of the second. I think it's now like 9 words instead of 27 words, and they basically say, the Second Amendment's for militia only, end of story, and then they move on.
Right.
So it's something that I'm obviously, as a Second Amendment advocate and a gun safety advocate and gun education advocate, I felt that there was a really big need for a book like this. And that's really where it stemmed from, is that my kids know all about firearms. They know the safety protocols. They go shooting with me. But it was time that my kids start learning about why we do what we do in the firearms world.
Right. In your own opinion here, why is it important that they learn these 27 words and understand what they mean, even if they're, in the case of your kids and mine, they're maybe too young to fully exercise that right? Why is it important that we teach them to understand the meanings of these words so early?
The reason is, very simply, that without the Second Amendment, all of the other rights that we hold dear, all of our freedoms in America, will no longer be a thing. They literally will be a thing of the past. So for children at a young age to start appreciating those freedoms that we hold dear, and the one right that allows us those freedoms, it's very important to start educating them at a young age to, again, it's not just a matter of, you're not just when you're teaching them about the Second Amendment being the one right that protects them all, you're also teaching them to appreciate the other freedoms we have, like I just said, but that in turn teaches them to appreciate America.
Mm-hmm.
People don't have the same freedoms that we have in America, and by understanding the Second Amendment and learning the reasons why we have a Second Amendment to protect our freedoms, it will make kids from a young age begin to appreciate the country, which is something that we desperately need nowadays as well.
And I think too, it will help them when they do get to school, and they do get to a point in school where this subject comes up. If it's taught incorrectly, or if it's glossed over, or completely skipped, you've given them an understanding of what it really means, and they can see if they can tell the difference between what they're taught in school and what you've taught them.
Exactly.
So I love the way you've done this book, by the way. Congratulations. This is an absolutely fabulous. I love the way you've done it. The first third of the book, you're breaking down every phrase, every sentence from the Second Amendment, explaining all the different terms so that you don't just read it to them and expect them to understand it. You break it down for them word for word, sentence for sentence.
Yes. That's why I did it, because like I said, it's something that needed to be done.
Yep. And it makes it easier for younger readers who don't understand the words well-regulated or militia or infringed. You actually explain what those words mean. And I love the page with the bear scratching his head where you explain what it means to bear arms. That's terrific.
Yes. Well, that's a big thing, just because, kids, it's spelled the same way as the big furry animal.
Right.
So, what's it mean to bear arms? And then, you have your confused bear standing right there. So.
Yep. I love it. And then the middle third of the book I really appreciated, because now, going beyond explaining what the words mean, now you're actually, the middle third of the book, you spend some time dispelling the common myths about the Second Amendment that these kids, your readers are likely to hear, whether it's in the media or at school. Can you kind of outline some of those?
Yes. I did that for a couple reasons. A, no one's going to buy a book that's 4 pages long. That we call that a pamphlet, and I had people backing this book, and if I said, "Hey guys, thank you for your money. Here's 6 pages," they'd be like, "Give us our money back. You don't need it." No, so it happens to be. I started off talking about, a lot of people say, "Oh, the founding fathers only believe that the rifle, the gun, the firearm, the Second Amendment only, to provide food for hunters,
Right.
And obviously, that's not the main reason why they wrote it. So, I talk about that. Then I talk about, the people who say that the question is, could the founding fathers have envisioned the type of firearms that we have today?
Right.
Again, I talk about that because obviously they did. They did know about it. They didn't understand that with the freedoms that they gave us, especially with the I guess call it the anti-regulations, and allowing Americans to create and invent, they were very well aware of the advancement of military weapons. And anyone who says otherwise, I mean, you can just look at the Puckle gun, which was made in 1717. I actually have a shirt, Lloyd. I don't know if you saw on my website. I have a shirt that says a picture of a Puckle gun that says "Puck you," because it's for no other reason than. No, that's exactly what the founding fathers had in mind. They knew all about the advancement of weaponry. And then I asked the question is, does the Second Amendment protect a person's right to own a firearm or just militias? So, I do talk about that. And of course, I'm not getting, keep in mind, this book is for 6 to 7 year olds.
Mm-hmm.
So, 6 to 10 year olds. So I'm not getting into the nitty gritty of it. So I asked that question, and, I discussed what the Supreme Court is, and I discussed the District of Columbia versus Heller.
Right.
And what the court ruled. Then I just, then I go and I talk about, the founding fathers only needed 27 words to convey the idea of the Second Amendment and what they meant. Unfortunately, people over the years have, completely misused what the founding fathers believed. But, I talk about that.
I thought that was an interesting point in that it only took them 27 words to explain this right. And over the years, here's the irony of that idea. We have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pages of court testimony and documents and rulings trying to explain this, which to the founders was so simple and so self-evident that it only took them 27 words to explain it.
Well, exactly. I mean, on the page when I talk about that, I also keep it super basic. On that actual page, I write, the ability to defend your right to life, liberty, and happiness was so important, the Founding Fathers only needed to use 27 words to make sure that the Second Amendment was understood. They wanted all Americans to know that self-defense was a God-given right and not something that the government gave to its citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Simple.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the Second Amendment does. It allows us as individuals to, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
So, I touch on that. I touch a little bit on, England being, bullies, and I touch on the idea of a bully and how, the Second Amendment allows us to stand up to the bullies.
That was, I think, a genius use of language. That struck me because when we in adult talk, we talk about this situation, we talk about the revolution, we talk about what led up to it. We don't use the word bully, but the word bully has a specific meaning that kids instinctively understand.
Yes, exactly. So, that's why I wrote that, because when you're dealing with 6 to 10-year-olds, those kids understand what a bully is. So for them to understand the way Britain was treating the colonists, if we explain to them that they were being bullies, mm-hmm. they were taking our lunch money from us. Kids will understand that. So, yep. You said I talk about that. I talk about, people immigrating legally to America because they want to live out their dreams without the fear of being bullied.
Yep.
And then again, I reiterate that the 27 words of the Second Amendment guarantees us that our ability to be free men and women in America is there. Yep. And then, I close off the book saying that's why the Second Amendment is the most important of them all, because without it, we don't have anything.
Right. And that's and you devote the final third of the book really to explaining what it is that makes America special and why the Second Amendment is important and keeping it that way. And I thought that was a really good way to top off the book. One thing that I noticed, that I know this was purposeful, but I wanted to get sort of your take on this or your explanation for how your thinking going into it. You make a point in this book of depicting lots of different people with guns. Black people, white people, couples, men, women, parents. Was that a conscious decision, or is it something that just because you see that every day in your life that's just the way it happened, or was there a purpose behind that?
I mean, there definitely was a purpose behind it. Unfortunately, to the gun grabbers out there, they try to push this narrative that only white male hicks
right.
are gun owners, and they hate blacks, and they hate gays, and they hate Jews, and they hate everybody in white power. And I mean, as you and I are very well aware, nothing can be further from the truth. I mean, look, some of my closest friends in the industry are black. Antonia Okafor, Kevin Dixie, Maj Touré, Colleen Noir, all black. Then you have your Hispanic ones. It doesn't make a difference. The Second Amendment is for everyone.
Right.
And I really wanted to show that in the book, that Americans, I'll tell you, today, I work at a gun store. Today, a football player on the Denver Broncos walked into my store today.
What?
Yep.
All right.
Guy from the Denver I have to find out. I'm going to message him, see if he minds if I post a photo. He came in, he bought, man, if you see the Wilson Combat, I think it was chambered in, I want to say 6.5, but he bought this. We're talking about, he had a Night Force, thermal opt. This was a high-end piece of equipment that he was buying, and he was just the nicest guy. I gave him copies of my books for his kids, and guys on the Denver Broncos, this big 6'4", 250-pound black guy, nicest guy, buying guns, has a license to carry. that's what the Second Amendment's all about. We don't care the color of your skin. We don't care your creed, your religion. It really makes zero difference. And
Yep.
if you are pro-gun, you're with us. If you're anti-gun, you're against us. It's that simple.
Yep.
And I really want to show that in the book by really showing the what's the word I'm thinking of,
the diversity.
Thank you, the diversity of what the gun world really is, and
Yeah.
not what the media tells everyone it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's very different. It's one of the points that I try to make, or the reason that I do my other podcast, Unload and Show Clear. I try to show that, for all these people who are screaming about gun people and who have this idea in their head about what gun people are, they don't realize that gun people are probably taking care of their aches and pains when they go to the doctor, cleaning their teeth, helping them work out at the gym, doing their taxes, flying their airplanes when they go from place to place, driving their taxis. They're people from all walks of life, all colors, all creeds, all sexes, and it's great that that stood out to me, because that's something that I think that we need to work a lot harder as a community to dispel, that idea that we as gun owners somehow are some monolithic group, when we really do represent, even in places like California, we represent a much broader spectrum of the population at large.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. We all believe that the Second Amendment's for everyone, and I do have to say, you said that we as Second Amendment advocates, we do brush our teeth, but we're all hicks, so we don't have to.
Just the three that we've got, right?
Yeah, just the three that we have: one molar, one canine, and maybe one on the bottom.
But it should say something that here we are. And I guess we better give a shout out to Tony Simon. The Second Amendment is for everyone.
I mean, last year I actually got to spend July 4th with Tony Simon.
And it's great what he's doing.
I happened to be in New Jersey that week, and that was awesome. So I love Tony. Tony's great, doing fantastic work.
Yep.
Second Amendment's for everyone. I mean, really fantastic work. So.
And it says something here, that here we have an observant Jew on a Lutheran podcast, and we're talking about what we have in common in terms of the fact that we're gun people, and yet we're different in so many different ways, but we're all the same. And
yeah, I mean, it really is amazing, because like I told you off air right beforehand, I got home from work today about 6:45, and then 7 o'clock, I jumped on a podcast. The host, it's called Trenchwork Chronicles. The host is a black guy.
Right.
And we had the same conversation. We don't care the color of our skin or religion or sexual preference or anything like that.
Right. Yep.
Everyone has the right to self-defense.
Absolutely. Yep.
And, I went from talking to a black guy to talking to a Lutheran, and it doesn't make a difference.
Right. Pasty white guy. Tell people where they can. You've got a new web shop on, and your books are available lots of different places. Tell us where they can shop for your books, and where they can shop for the Pew Pew Jew swag.
Okay, so right now, if they want copies of my books unsigned, they can go to Amazon. If they want specialized signed books, for kids or grandkids, anything like that, they can go to thepewpewjew.com. That's where you can get, signed copies of my book. So it's $24.95 versus $14.95 on Amazon, because I kind of feel that my John Hancock is worth all of $10. So hopefully people agree. But that's what, and I also have, you've seen all my shirts and stuff like that.
Yep.
So
great stuff.
over 75 pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, really funny stuff, T-shirts with a lot more in the works. I have kids stuff, so that's probably the best bet. Going to the pewpewjew.com. They can follow me on Instagram on the pewpewjew.com. I will say, feel free to follow me on Facebook. I do that as well. But if you see my account where you have to friend me, not to sound like a jerk, but ever since all my books started and I started actually building a name for myself and getting out there, I mean, I probably have 1,000 people waiting for confirmation, and I'm not going to confirm them unless I actually know you personally and I like you.
Right.
But I do have a public page that, I do a lot of stuff on as well. So, people can reach me. They can message me on my public page. I try as quickly as possible. I mean, definitely within 3-4 hours, I'm replying. So, if anyone wants to follow me there or Instagram, it's the best place.
Perfect. I'll include links for all of that in the show notes. Yehuda Remer, thank you so much for coming back to be on the show again. Now that you've hit the big time, I appreciate you coming back and being with us again. It's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, and we have to do this again soon. I'm releasing 105 explosive gun jokes in September.
All right. We will have to get together again to talk about that. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Awesome. Well, folks, that's all the time we've got for today. If you've got any comments or questions about today's episode or any other, please visit our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback. Leave us a voicemail or a voice message or send us an email. I'd love to hear from you. Like I mentioned earlier, I was telling a friend this past week at a match in Illinois about Yehuda Remer's books. I love them. I recommend them to anybody who loves the Second Amendment, who owns guns, who cherishes our rights, and wants to pass that passion on to your kids or grandkids. Look for links in the show notes for more information and get your copy today. Next week is going to be another of our variety show episodes. You'll have content from Mia and Bill and Pastor Bennett. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback or a review on iTunes and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.